The history of WEIU FM and TV dates back to the 1940s and the third-floor tower of Eastern Illinois University's Old Main. Dr. Albert Moses, faculty radio director, created a partnership with a Mattoon radio station. From Tower Studios, Eastern students produced their own original radio programs that were then broadcast through WLBH. The programs included dramatic performances, informational programs, music, and more. Their location in the tower would be the first of many moves as the radio operation grew. By the mid-50s, the radio program moved from the tower to the art wing of the Fine Arts Center. The 1960s would prove to be a time of growth and opportunity. From East Lincoln Hall, a group of 6 students used homemade equipment to transmit a radio signal to their fellow dorm mates. In 1964, WELH 640 AM started their broadcast operation in the basement of Booth Library.
We didn't have a very big library of songs, and my mom had worked at a music store in my hometown, and so I got discounts on stereos and tape recorders and records. I think I had a bigger record collection than the station had at that time. So I played some of my own records, but it was all rock and roll, 60s rock and roll. It was Beach Boys, Beatles, Bob Dylan, all those kinds of things.
WELH's signal was confined to the campus community, but that didn't affect the station's popularity with Eastern students.
They told us at one time that the only station that rated higher on campus as far as listeners was WLS in Chicago. And I was from Northern Illinois, so that was pretty impressive to me because WLS is what all teenagers listened to in the 60s.
In the mid-60s, a tradition that still continues today began. Eastern Illinois football games began play-by-play broadcast on the radio.
Sports was my first interest, and they needed somebody to help broadcast the football games. WELH broadcast those on campus, and so I think the second game my freshman year, I was broadcasting the football games on the radio, which was a big thrill for me and a lot of fun.
Outgrowing their space in Booth Library, the radio station moved to Coleman Hall in 1969. In 1972, WELH expanded their reach beyond the campus to the community of Charleston by having their signal carried by Charleston's cable TV system. Not only did their signal grow, but so did student involvement in WELH.
Of Charleston, this is Dan Cruz sitting in for Jack Bennett. Jack has finals tomorrow. He's studying. He should be studying, but he's standing right here with me. Say hello, Jack.
I did have a show on WELH. It was called the Saturday Night Classics with Wolfman Dan. And I played oldies, really from the 50s and the 60s and early 70s. And it was just a lot of songs that I loved when I was growing up. And the show was sponsored by the Audio Connection, which used to be located up on the Charleston Square. And you know, we would the show would be on from like 8 to 10, but radio back at WELH was real loose, and if we wanted to go to 11 o'clock, that would be fine too. So you know, it wasn't hard and fast rules there.
The early 1980s would see many new changes for the radio station, including the switch from 640 AM to 88.9 FM. Having moved several times throughout their history, the radio station made one final move to Buzzard Hall in 1985. They also changed their call letters from WELH to WEIU FM. With the new 200-foot tower, the radio station's reach was expanded to a 32-mile radius. The mid-80s would prove to be an exciting time at Eastern, as plans were underway to add a television station, thus creating a radio television center.
WEIU began during the presidency of Dr. Dan Marvin, and Dr. Marvin felt it was important that we have a radio TV center on campus for 2 reasons. One was to provide an opportunity to enhance the academic experiences for our students, and the second reason was to have a greater community outreach, not only in Charleston, but also in the whole East Central Illinois area.
On July 1st, 1986, WEIU TV officially started their broadcast operation on UHF Channel 51.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome live to the campus of Eastern Illinois University. You have just heard Mr. Ken Bino, the WEIU television manager, inaugurate the first telecast of WEIU TV Channel 51.
Our programming at the beginning was very commercially oriented. We had The Fugitive with David Jansen as one of our top things. And then we also had Little House on the Prairie and some of the other types of programmings that were not really based in public broadcasting, but were more family-oriented programs. We thought that was a good way to go.
And just like the radio station, the television center offered EIU students hands-on opportunities. A news program was started in the fall of 1986 with Sue Kaufman as the first news director.
And when I walked in the first day, I found 3 long tables like you'd find in a dining room set up, and a couple of typewriters, very old Smith Corona types, I believe they were. And there was a radio station, and I thought, whoa, this is not exactly like any newsroom I've ever seen. We're going to have to do a few things. So we started with that.
Newscan 51 grew into a daily 30-minute newscast, covering both campus and community news.
Good evening, I'm Kathy Gravitt.
And I'm Brian Tria.
In the headlines, Charleston bar patrons were surprised last week in a citywide raid on local taverns.
And it looks like an increase for Charleston's water rates. Leanne Roth will talk with Eastern President Stanley Reeves and Janetta Jones. Jacqueline O'Reilly has the EIU news. David Ward takes a look at sports, and Darren Reeser has the markets on Newscan 51.
In addition to news, the TV station produced other local programs, including Panther Country, Season's Greetings, The Lynch Colloquium, EIU Connection, and other specials. These programs allowed students to work side by side with WEIU production staff.
And Stan Reeves, our former president, was in here in something called the Arts and Colloquium series. And it was a talk show, and what happened was I was directing the show. So I looked over and I said to one of my students, who was one of the production directors, I think she was the floor manager, I said, Stan's tie is a little crooked. She said, okay. And I said, also, his hair is sticking up a little bit over here. She said, okay, so this is a true story, okay, you won't believe it. So she went up and she kind of tightened his tie, took her mouth and went like this, and put down his hair. And I went, oh. And so I said, I looked over to somebody, I said, did she just do this? So Stan went on the air, kept on going, everything was fine. His hair was down and his tie was straight, so that was the most important thing that kids had done.
In 1992, WEIU TV made a significant transition from being a non-commercial station to a PBS affiliate. This change allowed the station more programming choices from the PBS schedule.
And at that point in time, we were a PDP station, a partial program differential station, same as we are today. We were at 17%. That meant that we could take 17% of the PBS schedule and air it. Today we're a 25% affiliate, and that 25% includes a percentage of children's hours and a percentage of primetime hours.
In the mid-90s, Buzzard Hall underwent a major renovation, and for the most part, it was business as usual for WEIU, at least for a little while.
Everybody evacuated the building and moved to other buildings on campus except us.
It was kind of messy in here, but people, still did their jobs. I remember getting a call on the Friday before school was going to start that said, hey, your assignment has changed. We're not doing television news because there was a fire in the building. It took a fire during this construction project to basically, for the powers that be to say, okay, that's it, nobody can be in here anymore. So they pretty much kicked almost everybody in the TV station out. The students couldn't be in the building that year, and we suspended the newscast. We had no choice but to suspend the newscast for that 1 year, and then we started it again the following year in the new building, looking a lot like it does today.
Throughout the history of WEIU FM and TV, several EIU students have learned and honed their skills, many of whom went on to successful careers.
In my tenure, we had Larry Smith and Ray DeLessio and a whole host of folks up in the Chicago area who are still in broadcasting, Kelly Doyle, Chris Selfridge, innumerable people who've done extraordinarily well. But other success stories are people who worked here at the station and went on to successful careers in other fields.
I guess it's somewhat amazing thinking back when we have these students when they're 19, 20, 21 years old, and sometimes they're a little bit, they're not at their best sometimes during those years. And then several years later they go out and they get jobs and they're working in really big places.
WEIU continues to serve as a training ground for the media professionals of tomorrow. Today, students have opportunities to work in news, radio, live sports, and other station production. In more recent years, WEIU has undergone several more positive and exciting changes. In 2002, the TV station expanded the broadcast day to a 24-hour format. The addition of a digital production truck in 2003 brought live broadcasts of EIU football and men's and women's basketball to WEIU TV. In 2004, the radio station changed their format and their name to Hitmix 88.9 FM. The broadcast range of WEIU TV expanded significantly in 2006 when they made the transition from analog to digital broadcasting. A new 600-foot tower was constructed near Interstate 57, increasing the reach of the station to 22 counties. Numerous state and national awards for excellence have been won by both Newswatch and Hitmix. Most recently an Emmy Award in 2009 and again in 2010. On the forefront of technology, WEIU TV was the first station in the region to broadcast news in high definition. In 2010, new HD cameras and equipment were installed that allows WEIU TV to produce and broadcast in HD. As WEIU FM and TV closes the book on our first quarter century, we want to thank you, our listeners, viewers, and supporters, for being a part of our history. We hope you'll stay tuned and enjoy the next 25 years.